Valentine's Day is nearly here, or Galentine's Day if that's your thing, and Coquette Aesthetic is everywhere recently. And so in this video, I will be sharing 25 Valentine's Day and Coquette Aesthetic granny squares that are perfect to make. I know Valentine's Day is definitely something I'm a bit more neutral on as an adult. Of course, I loved it as a kid, but I've always really loved the kind of kitschy sort of aesthetic that it has, with cupids everywhere and red hearts, or phrases like "be mine" or "I'm yours." And so I had a lot of fun coming up with these different granny squares that are great to make. And I'll be separating all of these granny squares into two different categories, Coquette and Valentine's Day. Because all of these patterns are granny squares, they work up pretty quickly and are made in pretty much the same way, working from the center out, and are great to use scrap yarns for. And if you want to find the exact links to any and all of these patterns, you can check it out on my blog post, which will be in the description box below. So first, I'll share some Coquette granny squares with you. The first pattern is the Bow Granny Square by Maham. This pattern includes how to create a basic granny square, how to create the bow, and then how to sew it onto the granny square to finish it off. This pattern has a written tutorial on their blog, as well as a helpful video tutorial on their YouTube channel. Next is the Bow Granny Square by Pix Zell. This pattern begins with making the bow and then working the granny square around it. And there's a detailed tutorial on YouTube. And there's also a paid pattern on their Ko-fi account. Another fun one is the Bow Square by Amelia Makes. This pattern is made all in one piece and makes a 4 by 4 inch square, and you work the bow section first and then the edges. This one also has a YouTube video tutorial as well and is simply made using basic stitches, so it's definitely beginner friendly. This next one is a generally more lacy crochet square because many of you know, if you've been around here for a while, that I love my lacy squares, but also they have a nice feminine and coquette vibe. This one's called the Magnolia and it's by Kristen Holloway Designs. This one is 12 inches when blocked and is more of an intermediate level design. Or another great one is the Bow Square by Marilyn Sen. This one has a really lovely raised stitch design of a bow, and I believe it's made with the popcorn stitch, which also gives it some nice stitch definition and texture. And the square measures 9 inches, and this one's available as a paid pattern on their Ravelry. Next is another lacy delicate square called the 4-petal flower by Crochet Leaf. It's created by working a 4-corner square in the round, and then that loopy edging is added to give it that lacy look with the fingering yarn. And this one's available for free on their website, and it's also about 4 inches or 10 centimeters across. If you love cherries, you'll probably like this next one. It's the 3D Cherry Granny Square by Iraman Tianat. It has this really lovely 3D effect by making a puff stitch in round 4, and I really like how detailed this square is. There's also a nice YouTube video tutorial to go along with this, which is great if you're a more visual learner. Continuing on with more cherry squares, here's another one by Best Free Crochet. For this one, you make the granny square first with the ruffle edging, and then you add on the cherries, stems, and leaves as applique. And this one's really easy and simple to follow with the written instructions on their blog. Feminine flower designs are also very coquette, and here is a lovely rose granny square by Moara Crochet. The flowers have such a great 3D effect, and I love the details on how it has that texture of the rose and the green yarn is added as a leaf effect as well. It's a bit more of an intermediate level design, and the special stitch used here is the double crochet cluster stitch. The square measures about 10 centimeters, and there's a helpful YouTube video tutorial for this one as well. Or this Rose Granny Square by Crafty Kitty Crochet. This one is made by making that flower first flat, and then adding that spiraling effect in the middle of the rose. And the square measures 5.25 inches. Or if you love lacy squares like I do, you might like this next one. It's the Sweetheart Square by Draguna. I would say this one is a bit more intermediate or even a bit more advanced, as it has quite a few special stitches that you need to know, like the 2, 3, and 4 front post double crochet decrease stitches, the beginning double crochet cluster and 3 double crochet cluster, the 2 front post double crochet cluster, and the picot and large picot stitch. So this one's very detailed, but there's also quite a few detailed, helpful pictures on their blog post. Here is another flower motif with the Cherry Blossom Square by Christine's Crochet. This one is beginner friendly and pretty simple to create. It creates a nice lacy delicate flower design, and this one also has a YouTube video tutorial for it. Or you could make the Willow Granny Square by Adore Area Crochet. It's also a lacy flower design, and if you make it in red, pink, or cream, it would be even more of a coquette aesthetic. Also, there's a YouTube video tutorial for this one as well. And now I'll share some Valentine's granny squares with you. This first one definitely gives me Cupid vibes. It's the Angel Heart Granny Square by Be a Crafter. First, you create the heart and the wings, then behind that heart, you work the rest of the square, so it's really cleverly constructed. And this one has lots of detailed pictures for each step on their blog post. Or you could make a more classic Valentine's Day square like this popcorn heart granny. I love the puffy nature of this one, and there are only 4 rounds. It uses bulky yarn, so it definitely work up pretty quickly. And the main special stitch for this one is the popcorn stitch, which is 5 double crochet in the same stitch. Continuing on with heart squares, you could make the Crochet Heart Granny Square by the Caffeinated Snail. This one is really interesting because it uses the tapestry crochet method, but in the round, to create this graphic heart design. As long as you know how to tapestry crochet, you'll be able to create this one pretty quickly. The square measures 6 inches, and there are a lot of detailed pictures for each step of creating this one on their blog. Or here's another heart square by Treasury. This pattern actually includes 2 different styles. One is made with granny square clusters, and the other one is more of a solid granny square heart. Both patterns are easy to follow and beginner friendly, and this one has lots of step-by-step pictures for both of these patterns as well on their blog. Here's another granny square heart by Oki Blingin' Things. Funnily enough, it's kind of similar to the last 2 patterns but combined, where first you make that solid heart shape in the round, and then you add the granny square clusters around it. And this one has a helpful YouTube video tutorial to go along with it. Or you could make a heart applique square like this one by Rafamusa Designs. This pattern has 5 different heart applique sizes that you can make, ranging from 1/2 inch or 1.2 centimeters to 1.8 inches or 5.5 centimeters. This one also has a helpful YouTube video tutorial to go along with it. And this one's really great to use with scrap yarns to make all those different hearts. And you can get really creative and eclectic with the different colors that you use. Next is the Crochet Heart Granny Square by Repeat Crafter Me. I really love the shape of this heart and feel that it has a really unique design. I also love that this square doesn't have a lot of gaps, so it'd be perfect for a blanket or pillow or a bag pattern. And this one has both a helpful YouTube video tutorial as well as step-by-step instructions on their blog posts. Or you could make a Crochet Love Granny Square by Rafamusa Designs. Each letter measures 1.4 inches by 2 inches or 3.5 centimeters by 5 centimeters, and each letter is worked and then simply sewn on as applique to a granny square. Each letter measures 1.4 inches by 2 inches or 3.5 centimeters by 5 centimeters, and each letter is simply worked and then sewn on as applique to a granny square. And Rafamusa Designs definitely has a lot of great Valentine's Day granny squares, so if you want to check them out, go to their blog post because there's a lot of really great ideas there. Here's another lovely square by Love Dottie. This one is unique because it is a nice puffy heart surrounded by granny clusters and a neat border. The only special stitches here are the puff stitch and the beginner puff stitch. And I really like the color choice here. It's not really Valentine's Day specific, but you could wear it for Valentine's Day as well as all year long. Another great heart granny square is this one by Bella Coco. It's a nice heart design made with cluster stitches and is for sale in their shop. And this one has a crochet chart to go with it, which is really helpful if you read charts. I know that I've been really getting into reading them recently and find them really helpful. Or another creative one by Rafamusa Designs is the Love Letter Granny Square. This pattern creates a 2.5 by 3.15 inches or 6.4 by 8 centimeters letter, which begins by creating that letter and then folding it and sewing it together. Then you create the heart seal and sew it together on the envelope, and then you crochet the letter and embroider your message on it and sew it all into place. and then you sew all of that onto a granny square. And this one definitely is beginner friendly, but you do need to have some confidence with all of that sewing for sure. You could also make the large heart granny square by Happy Berry. This one says it's intermediate level, but as long as you're comfortable with all of the basic stitches as well as the puff stitch, which for this project you yarn over and pull up a loop until you have 7 loops on your hook, then you'll definitely be able to make this pattern. And this pattern is free on their blog. What did you think of my list of 25 Coquette and Valentine's Day granny squares? If you enjoyed it, please give this video a like, and also don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to join me each week on Tuesdays as well as occasionally Saturdays for crochet inspiration, behind the scenes of running my fiber art business, and for just general crochet tutorials. Well, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.